In this lecture, we're going to start with a theory paper 4 for October-November 2024 biology. First question says organisms from the genus Chlorella are Protoctis. State the additional information required to name Chlorella according to the binomial system. So basically you need the genus and the species name next to it, right? So the species name or the species will be the answer, because remember the first part of the name is always with a capital letter, and that's the genus. After that, the next part of the name is always written in small letters, and that is called the species name. Figure 1.1 shows the structure of an organism from the genus Chlorella. So you've got the nucleus, you've got the cytoplasm, you've got cell membrane, chloroplast, and the cell wall. Identify two cell structures in figure 1.1 that indicate that Chlorella is not a prokaryote. So prokaryotes like bacteria, they do not have basically a nucleus, obviously. So you see a nucleus is present. And other than that, cell organelles like the chloroplast shouldn't be there either. So nucleus, chloroplast, they are the answer. Now, because the command word is identify, there is no need to write any description or any explanation. Just writing the words nucleus and chloroplast gets the job done. Identify two cell structures in figure 1.1 that are found in both fungi and Protoctis. So both fungi and Protoctis will possess a cell membrane and will possess a nucleus. So any two out of cell membrane, nucleus. Other possible answers could also be cytoplasm and the cell wall. State the names of two other kingdoms apart from fungus, prokaryote and Protoctis. So you've got fungus, you've got prokaryote, and you've got Protoctis. So two other kingdoms can be kingdom Animalia and Plantae, if you want to be precise with the terms, but you can also just spell them as animal and plant, right? But in the full form, they are often spelled as Animale and Plantae. So you could write that, or you could just write animal and plant. Chlorella is sold as a nutritional supplement. Spirulina is another nutritional supplement. Table 1.1 shows some information, nutritional information for chlorella and spirulina supplements and the recommended daily intake for some nutrients. One tablet contains 5 gram of chlorella supplement. Using the info in table 1.1, calculate the number of tablets of chlorella supplement a person needs to take to provide the recommended daily intake of iron. Give your answer to one decimal place. Space for working. So whenever they ask you to calculate something, always make it a habit to show your steps, because if the question carries more than 1 mark, then definitely there will be method marks given. Your steps need to be shown, right? And if your final answer is somehow wrong, you will still get some credit for the steps. If the steps aren't there but the final answer is correct, they'll give you benefit of doubt, still give you full marks. But if your final answer is wrong, then you'll not get any mark. If the steps are there and something in the steps is correct, they can at least partially give you credit. Okay, so think about it logically. One tablet contains 5 gram of chlorella supplement, right? Now they're saying in the table that the mass of the nutrient in milligram per 100 gram of the supplement is given here. So in iron situation, we have 37 milligram of iron per 100 gram. So that means if you divide 37 milligram per 100 gram, 37 over 100 will give you 0.37 mg per gram, right? If you divide 37 with 100, you're going to get 0.37 milligram for every gram of the tablet. And if you multiply that 0.37 with 5, you're gonna get the amount of iron that you're getting from one tablet of chlorella supplement, and then round off the answer to one decimal place. And 1 mark point for having seen the value of 37 being used and 12 being used, and eventually 6.49 or 486 being shown and then rounded off correctly to give you the final answer, which precisely should be 6.5. The final mark is for that final value. So I've explained it, and I want you to do it in your own handwriting and make sure you get the same answer. If you get stuck, just send a picture of your working to me. I'll let you know where you need to change something. Oh yeah, one last thing I want to add. Because they want you to calculate the number of tablets of chlorella supplement a person needs to take to provide the recommended daily intake of iron, right? So after what I told you, that 37 over 100 is 0.37 mg per gram, multiply that with 5 gram, and you'll get how much iron is there in one tablet. Now, an adult needs 12 mg of iron per day. So you need to divide 12 with whatever you get as the amount of iron per tablet, and that will give you this final answer, which will be rounded off as 6.5 tablets, okay? Explain the advantages of taking chlorella as a dietary supplement rather than spirulina. Use the data to justify your answer. So command is explain, marks are 4, and they want you to use the data. So if you don't use the data, you're not gonna get full marks. Make sure to follow the command and the rubric, the instructions. So advantages of chlorella than spirulina. So you can clearly see that chlorella has less iron than spirulina, so that's definitely not an advantage. But chlorella has 120 milligram per 100 gram of the supplement as calcium, whereas spirulina is just 5.1. And given that the daily intake is 1000 mg per day, it will take fewer tablets of chlorella to meet your intake of calcium, right, than spirulina. So that's one benefit. And note how I process my comment. I've given the values, process them into a statement that you'll need less tablets of chlorella supplement than you would for spirulina. And chlorella contains 0.74 mg per gram of vitamin C, whereas spirulina does not have any vitamin C content, which means that only chlorella can meet the requirement of vitamin C, which is about 80 milligram per day. So there are 2 points, explain them, code data. Mark scheme says chlorella contains vitamin C. Vitamin C is needed. There's no need to go into the depths, by the way, like, immune system, wound healing. Instead of doing that, keep your explanation focused onto the table. Process the values. That's more important for this question. Chlorella contains more calcium, so you can quote the value and say that you'll need fewer tablets. But if you don't want to be going down that road and stick to purely a biological explanation, okay, then in that case it is acceptable to say that, okay, vitamin C is needed for wound healing, calcium is needed for strong bones, prevention of diseases like rickets, right? You could say that. And clearly you need data to get all marks here. State the name of one food that is a principal dietary source of vitamin C. So oranges have a lot of vitamin C. That can be an answer. Orange juice or oranges. Chlorella is also a good source of protein. State the importance of proteins in active transport. Now, the command isn't saying explain or describe. They're saying state. So what I'll do is I'll give 2 statements that is 2 different points. I'll just briefly identify or mention them. I won't go into an explanation since the command is not asking me to explain, so why waste that time? State the importance of proteins in active transport. So proteins proteins in active transport. So one answer can be that proteins are used to make channels through which active transport of particles can take place through the cell membrane. And you can also talk about how there will be specific protein channels for specific things so that only required particles or substances can be actively transported. So proteins are acting as carriers in membranes to allow the movement of particles from a low to high concentration using energy. But you see, this is more of a definition of active transport instead of identifying the importance of proteins. It's much better to quote my other point that since in active transport you need to carry particles against a concentration gradient from low to high, and only specific particles are supposed to pass through the cell membrane, not everything needs to pass through. So different protein ion channels act as carriers for different particles. They're unique to what they need to carry, right? Like some of them will allow hydrogen ion movement, some of them will allow sodium ion movement, some will allow potassium ion movement, some will allow chloride ion movement. It can vary. So having a specific protein channel allows a route for a specific particle to be actively transported. That's actually more precise. State the name of the smaller molecules that proteins are made of. The answer is amino acids. Easy. And that is the end of question 1.